Hi, this is pbrittain. My student number is C13563727. This is the outline video for my databases assignment, and this is my ERD for that database. I have a table customer that has the first name, surname, and address. That has a one-to-many non-identifying relationship with customer design, which has the foreign key from customer of the customer ID, and it also has the foreign key from the next table, employee, of the employee ID. The customer design has a many-to-one non-identifying relationship to that employee table. The employee table has a many-to-one non-identifying relationship with the department table, which has the department ID and name. The customer design is also has a one-to-many non-identifying relationship with customer payment, and the customer payment has the foreign key customer design ID that's coming from customer design table. Back to the customer design table, it has a one-to-many non-identifying relationship with lighting spec, which has the foreign key customer design ID from the table customer design. The lighting spec table has a one-to-many identifying relationship with the weak entity table lighting spec stock. A weak entity is an entity that cannot be uniquely identified by its attributes alone, and therefore it must use a foreign key in conjunction with its attributes to create a primary key. In this lighting spec stock, we have the two foreign keys, lighting spec ID, which is coming from lighting spec table, and the stock item ID, which is coming from the next table, which is stock. We get to stock by a many-to-one identifying relationship from lighting spec stock, and that stock table has a one-to-many identifying relationship with stock order stock, which is another weak entity, which has two foreign keys that link in a many-to-one identifying relationship with stock order. And that stock order table finally has a many-to-one non-identifying relationship with supplier table, which has the supplier's ID, name, and number. So I'm just going to go to the SQL now. So at the beginning of this SQL, I'm just going to drop all my tables, and it purges all the constraints. Is that completed? That's fine. Just going to move on to creating my tables. I'm going to start with creating the table supplier, which has the primary key supplier ID. The supplier ID is held as a number of 6 digits long and can't be null. Supplier ID is a varchar2 and it's 20 characters long, and supplier number is going to be a number and it's going to be 10 characters long. So I'm going to go on to create table stock, which has a primary key stock ID, item ID, and the stock item ID is going to be a number of 6 characters. The stock description is going to be a varchar2 of 30, and the stock item price is going to be a number, and it's going to be it's going to be a number of 7 digits of 2 decimal places. I'm moving on. So to the weak entity stock order stock, it's going to be the ID and the stock item ID are going to be 6 characters long, and it's going to have a primary key, which is stock order ID, and a foreign key, which is going to be stock order ID, and another foreign key, which is going to be stock item ID. And that's going to be created. Then there's going to be customer. It's going to have the ID, the first name, the surname, and the address. It's just going to be kind of a number in varchar of set size, which has a primary key that is customer ID. And then the next table is going to be department ID and name, same kind of as it has been, with a number that is 6 digits long and a varchar2, which is 30, with a primary key that's department ID. Next table is employee, where we have the employee ID, department ID, and employee name. We have a primary key, which is employee ID, and we have a foreign key, which is going to be the department ID. Then we have customer design table, which includes the design ID, the customer ID, the employee ID, the return date, the customer payment ID, and the lighting spec ID. It's going to have the primary key customer design ID, the foreign key customer ID, and the foreign key employee ID. Going on to lighting spec, has the spec ID, the customer design ID, lighting description, lighting price, all kind of same as always, can't be null, and we have the primary key lighting spec ID, the foreign key customer design ID. Going on to the customer payment, I'm just going to say that the primary key is the customer payment ID and the foreign key is going to be the customer design ID. So that's the creating of the tables completed. I'm going to just execute those, and I'm going to move on to the inserts. Yeah, so kind of moving on to the inserting of data, since that went well. It's just going to be 10 times 10 inserts into the various tables. Not much to be said there. I'm just going to insert them now. Wow. Well, I'll try that again. Well, I'm going to move on to the queries when I get this inserted. Yep, so all the rows got inserted there. Moving on to the queries, where I just have a couple of queries. The first is a single row function. It's really just going to be a quick example of rounding a number from lighting price from the table lighting spec. So you can see those there in the output. Next one is an aggregate function, and that's going to be selecting the sum of lighting price from the table lighting spec. There you have it, 17,255.39. Going on to an inner join of two tables, we're just going to inner join customer ID and customer design ID, where the customer ID is the same, and there you go. Just two columns. On the inner join of three tables, I'm going to use customer ID, customer design ID, and customer payment price, where the customer design ID is going to be the same, and ordered by the customer ID. There we go. The left join, it's going to be a left join with the table employee. We're going to left join it with the table department, where the department ID is the same, and here you go. Then we have a right outer join, and that's going to be with the table employee with a right join to department, where the department ID is the same. And there's the join. Now moving on to alterations, we're going to just update the table stock, and we're just going to change the item price, where the item ID is 800003. And then we can, if we want to, do the next, which is just checking if the update works. I'm going to do that actually. That's 79.99, so that worked. The set went well. Then add a column, we're just going to alter table employee, and we're going to add age, which is going to be a number of 2. And that was altered, and we can just check it there with the select statement, employee. And they've been changed, but nothing has been set in age. We have add value constraint, which is we're just adding a check of lighting prices under the 2000. Going to modify a table in stock. We're going to modify the stock description to have FARCAR2 of 60. I think that's double, up from 30. And that went to alter, that altered fine. And then we have the drop column, we're just going to drop age that we created earlier in the table employee. And that's been altered. So that's my assignment. I went through the URD and the SQL. Thank you very much.